It's my greatest honor and privilege to welcome a sister Minnesotan, a sister organizer, Congressman Ilhan Omar.
Thank you, Amanda, for that heartfelt introduction. We miss you in Minnesota. So when you feel like you have completed your work here, please return home. Hopefully it won't be as cold as it is today. I heard her backstage talking about how cold Minnesota is. I was like, boo. There is much more to us than our cold weather. I always say that our state might be really cold, but the people have warm hearts. And you might have noticed how wonderful our organizers are when they are out in other states and the work that they're able to do. Because we raise them well in Minnesota. We learn to care about one another, to care about community. And I said on my election night that in Minnesota we don't only welcome refugees, but we send them to represent us in Congress. It's been such an honor really to have the opportunity to be in Congress at such a time. It's both a blessing and a burden to be money firsts. Oftentimes people, get to really be excited about the opportunities that they get to have to see themselves in Congress and in the political process, and get to feel like that this representative democracy is really representing them. And for my home state to have had the opportunity to see themselves in a representative that is not only the first African born, but a refugee herself, an immigrant, someone who fully understands the dangers that come from a divided community, and the situations that arise when we are not practicing diplomacy and de-escalation and get ourselves into war, has been inspiring for them. But that makes it hard for me because it means that every single day I get to be in a position to not only defend those communities, but to actively and forcefully impose and imply my perspective in this political process. We are currently coming from just learning about the State of the Union. And while the president came to speak to us and share many of his lies and disinformation, we also got to fully understand that the state of our union is in full disarray. The state of our union is completely disconnected. The state of our union is devastating. And for many of the people of our country, it is for them to really look at some of the leaders that they have to try to create a better connection in our communities and to create unity and to speak about solidarity and to look at what it means for us to create a better tomorrow. Because the America that we're fighting for is an America that needs to look more like us. One that gets to restore hope. One that gets to believe in the uplifting of the working people. One that gets to speak not only for people who are barely making it, for people who are living in poverty and below poverty. Because when we're talking about income inequality, we're not only talking about people who are just seeing the challenges of what it means to take a paycheck and to feed their families while they pay rent and mortgage and deal with their student debt. But it's about the people who don't really even get to have a full paycheck. The people who are working 2 jobs and 3 jobs just to put food on the table and have roof over their heads. It's about the people who we are constantly fighting to make sure that they're able to access food stamps, they're able to have housing that is affordable. The people who are currently not just housing insecure, people who are facing evictions, but people who are actually homeless, living on the sides of the streets, riding our public transportation back and forth, just so that they can find some warmth and find some safety for themselves. I talked to one of the representatives earlier today at a call time that I was doing, and she told me that in northern Nevada, that it's $2,200 to rent 1-bedroom apartment. And so cities across our country are becoming inaccessible for people to live. Because how much money do you have to make in order for you to be able to afford 1 bedroom that is $2,200? Right? And that's not only happening in DC or New York City. That's happening in places like Nevada. That's happening in places like Minnesota. And so it is imperative that we fight to increase wages, to close the income gap and the wealth gap, and to make sure that we're passing policies that fulfill the homes guarantee by passing Homes for All in Congress and into law when we get Senator Bernie Sanders as our president.
That's right.
Because it is the developers, it's the corporations, it's the special interests that are pricing people out of our communities. And we're at SEIU. As a former union member, I used to be part of FSME. I know the work that needs to go into protecting workers' rights. Because when they fight, when unions fight for workers' rights, they're not only fighting for a living wage, a decent wage, a dignified wage. They're also fighting to make sure that everybody in their community has access to that. So the strength of unions is built on solidarity. And many of the benefits we get to enjoy in our workplaces are benefits that were fought for and earned by unions. And there's a beautiful solidarity that is happening between unions and immigrants and folks who are being exploited in the workplace, people who are undocumented. Because Minnesota has communities in rural parts of Minnesota, especially southern parts of Minnesota, where we have community members who are undocumented. And those community members often are exploited by the same people who fight every single day to destabilize unions. Because they know, right, that they can have cheap labor. They know they can exploit these workers. They know that they can have them work 10 hours, 12 hours, 16-hour shifts without anybody standing up for them. They know they can threaten them, they can abuse them in any kind of way. And so when people say, we are creating unsafe communities by fighting for sanctuary cities, it's actually the opposite. Because when our neighbors, regardless of their status, feel safe, then our whole community feels safe. And in the state of Minnesota, when I was in the legislature, I introduced a state sanctuary bill. And one of my co-authors was a Republican who represented one of those communities that had undocumented workers that were being exploited. And I remember having a conversation with one of these reps. And one of the reasons they were so willing to stand up and say, this is what we need in order for everyone in our community to feel safe, is because they had a conversation with the people that they represented, regardless of their status. Because I don't only represent the people who have a legal right to vote for me. I represent every single person who's living in my district, in my state, and in my country. So when you have a rape victim, when you have a worker that is being abused by their employer, when you have someone who has their wages being stolen, that's your community member. And these policies allow for them to seek a remedy for their abuse without the fear of deportation. And so if we are to build a community that cares for one another, then we must have policies that are reflective of those values. And so when we ask for a homes for all and say housing is a human right, we recognize that in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, no one should be subjected to sub-zero weather and sleep on the side of the street.
That's right.
Because who is mostly homeless in America?
Veterans.
It's the veterans.
Yes.
It's Native Americans. Indigenous people. People whose land we get to enjoy and use. It's the African Americans. People who didn't voluntarily come to this country, right, but helped build this country. And so in Minneapolis, we have homeless people who are native, who in this weather, in the weather that you're getting an alarm for, Amanda, sleeping on the side of the street. That ain't right.
No,
That's not America. That's not us.
that's right.
We can do better. And so, in a policy that is not about me, but about us, we don't only think about what we're losing, we think about what we're gaining. And so when we advocate for a Green New Deal, we're advocating for an environment that allows for us to have clean water and breathable air. One that is sustainable. One that gives us the opportunity to create jobs that are not ultimately going to destroy us. When we advocate for canceling student debt and creating college free, making our colleges free, we're recognizing that education, public education, is a public good. That we don't only use our education for the advancement of self, we use it for the advancement of community, of country. Many countries around the world not only provide free college, but some of them pay their public to go to college. Because they know a society does not advance unless its people are educated.
Right.
And so we don't get to thrive as a community, as a society, as a country, when we have 45 million people shackled with student debt. While we're fine with bailing out Wall Street, giving tax cuts to corporations, allowing looters to loot our economy. So, the advancement of our societies depends on us rethinking who we are advocating for. Are we to create a policy that is for the advancement of few? Or are we to create policies that are for the advancement of many? Is my mansion safer when everyone around me is homeless or living paycheck to paycheck in destitute? Or is my mansion safer when everybody has the ability to feed themselves, clothe themselves, put roof over their head? I think the latter is true. Right?
Yes.
And so we can do better, and we must do better. And so I'm excited for this campaign that we're all part of. I'm excited for the opportunity for us to collectively to continue to fight for an America that is prosperous for all of us. That recognizes that our power is to be utilized for good. That our power is best kept in the hands of the people. That our power is best utilized when we have people in Congress and in the White House who are beholden to the people and not special interests, to the status quo, or to the And so there are a lot of people who are terrified of the kind of movement that Senator Sanders is building. They're terrified because they know his record. They know he is beholden to the people. They know that he is going to hold corporations accountable. They know he's going to make them pay their fair share. They know he's going to implement policies that are for the people, of the people. And they know that the people's house and Washington are going to function for the people.